Welcome to Hearth Crafting, a Buttons Grove Homestead podcast with Heidi Snellgrove. Well, another week is coming to an end. It's not been much of a gardening week this week. We've had a lot of rain. The plants have been enjoying sitting out in the rain and are coming together. I think I lost 2 tomato plants to some sort of bug that was eating the leaves. They ate some of the other leaves, but not nearly as badly as they ate these. I'm sorry, I said tomato. It was really cucumber that lost. These 2 cucumber plants. But we have some other cucumber plants, so I'm not overly worried about it. The pumpkin's got 4 or 5 blooms on it. That's kind of good to see. I think it's got more blooms than it has leaves, though, so that's not 100% of a positive. The watermelon plant doesn't seem to be thriving this year, but it was an experiment for this time of year, so we'll see what happens. But I haven't done any transplanting or anything. What time I've spent on gardening this week, I've been working on a design for an herb garden that somebody commissioned me to put together. And I think we've got a design for it. Now I just need to get started with the plants and lay out its budget. So that's kind of next on that front. So there'll be a little bit more gardening in my week next week. I'm excited about the blogs that are coming out this week. Since I was talking about gardening, one of the blogs that I'm working on is a review of the grow bags that we've been using this year. This is the first year we've used grow bags for plantings. And so in this upcoming review, you can get a real sense of how I feel about them and how they're working out. I've also got a kitchen tool review of a roaster. And if you've never used a commercial or a big old-fashioned kitchen roaster, you can get a sense of what I do with mine and how integral it is into my kitchen. There's an article coming out talking about stock buckets and what a stock bucket is and how I make use of it. It's the secret to how I get stocks made quickly and easily, which kind of takes me back into the kitchen. I did some experimenting this week with some different ways to use hollandaise sauce that I really liked and I'm pretty excited about, as well as reviving an old recipe that kind of has gone out of vogue in the past years called a strata. And I'm excited about being able to take some pictures of the one I'm going to be making in the next couple of days. I've got a big kitchen project coming up over the weekend. In fact, it's why I'm doing recording my podcast on Saturday instead of Sunday, is because I plan to be in the kitchen most of tomorrow. I'm going to be doing some parboiling of potatoes to freeze them that will eventually become French fries, hash browns, roasted potatoes, you name it. So that'll be kind of a busy day. Was in the kitchen a lot yesterday, but it was 10 minutes here and 10 minutes there. Sorry about that. Noisy truck just went by. 10 minutes here and 10 minutes there while I was taking some of the mixes that we keep on hand and flushing them out. I love the fact that Megan and I can hit the kitchen and in 10 minutes have made a dozen cookies and a dozen muffins to hold everybody in breakfast and snack. And then yesterday we worked on a roasted ham and just did some maintenance things that I needed to get done in the kitchen. Getting some sauces made, getting the refrigerator cleaned out, those kind of things. And then yesterday I baked 2 different kinds of bread. So that took a fair amount of time. And when I talk about a fair amount of time, most of the time, the maximum time I spend in the kitchen is an hour a day total. And that's usually only 1 day a week. Making 2 breads sounds like I spent a lot of time in the kitchen, but by using the bread machine, I mixed a dough for the English muffins and left them to do their first rise in the bread machine, but then shaped them for their second rise outside the bread machine. It only takes about 2 minutes to shape English muffins. So that was a no-brainer. Once they were rising, I stuck a rich egg bread, which is a soft sweet bread. It's a traditional Jewish bread, but it's one that we love in our house and make on occasion. Although I will admit my homemade one is from scratch is better than the bread machine version. But it wasn't bad. It's a nice soft bread. I made it in the bread machine start to finish. While it takes 2.5 hours for the bread machine, it only takes the time it takes me to load the bread machine, which is about 5 minutes. So then baking off the English muffins, because with English muffins you actually grill them. And if you grill them on the stovetop, this can take a while. But if you use an electric skillet, I'm able to get 4 to 6 English muffins in my electric skillet. Now, since I had 8 to cook off, I did 2 batches of 4. They spend 5 minutes on each side to get done, but you don't really have to watch them. The beauty of working in the kitchen and the living room at the same time is I can stick the English muffins in, set a timer for the 5 minutes, walk away, fold some clothes, and then all I have to do when the timer goes off is flip them. So 2 batches, took a total of 20 minutes, but I was probably only in the kitchen 2 to 3 minutes during that time. 4 of the English muffins we set in the refrigerator. 2 of them will be used for a Eggs Benedict that I'm making tomorrow. And 2 will just be eaten as breakfast for somebody throughout the house, throughout the week. The other 4 I froze. English muffins freeze and defrost very nicely. And if you put some parchment paper in between them when you stick them in the freezer, you can actually pull them out individually. So I put 1 bag of them in. I'll probably take 2 muffins out at one time and then 2 again later. At another time, just for an added special breakfast. We don't do bread a lot of the time with breakfast, but every once in a while, like an Eggs Benedict, which is something our household loves, it's a nice treat. This was a good time to do an Eggs Benedict because I had been working on testing the freezing and thawing of the hollandaise sauce. And because we had made a ham yesterday, so I just sliced some of the ham to take the place thinly and set it aside for the Canadian bacon that I would normally have put on the Eggs Benedict. Other than that, things that you're going to see on the website over the coming days it include the grow bags. It includes a overviewing of what hearth keeping is as opposed to hearth crafting. We'll talk about fruit plants and how the cycles of the moon work with plants that are considered fruit plants. On Skillshare, the water kefir class is up and running. And there were some other classes that got a little bit of an upgrade. Next on the list is a class that I had recorded a while back and actually thought I had posted. And I went back and realized that it never made it all the way to Skillshare. So I'm going to finish up, do a little revamp on freezer management and get it up there. Managing my freezers is one of those things that I spend a little bit of time on for a lot of value in my household. So I'm excited to share that with you guys. I really did think I had already done this. So we're going to go back and hit that. Other blog articles that are coming down the pipe in the next week or so is how to use warming rocks to warm plants in the winter. Some of my littler plants that aren't quite hardy yet, I'll be using some warming rocks for these cold nights, as well as using on some of the smallest plants a personal plant greenhouse that I'll show you how to make on the website. The sauce of the week for this coming week is hollandaise, and then we're going to switch over to teriyaki. And with teriyaki, I'm actually going to be talking about two different things. There's the traditional teriyaki sauce that I've made for years and years and years in my house, and we use it at least once a week somewhere in my kitchen. But I also recently have been introduced to a version of teriyaki that's called Indonesian soy sauce, which has almost the same ingredients as teriyaki, but it's boiled down and some of the water's been reduced out of it till it's a very thick syrup. And I've been experimenting with using it some of the ways I use teriyaki and really like it. So we're going to talk about both of those sauces and what all you can do with them in the teriyaki sauce coming up. I'm also going to be talking about how to create salted lemons and salted limes, and what all to do with them. In addition to that, the Life on the Spectrum article that Megan and I are working on together is talking about being an advocate for your kid. And then we're going to follow that up with actually planning for transition, which is the stage Megan and I are in now. Planning for what high school classes and educational experiences I want her to have to try to help her transition into adulthood in a way that fits her and her personality. And this is something that as Megan's getting younger, and I think back to when the older kids were this age, I'm realizing we do this it's part of the special ed concept. So since Megan started out in the special ed system, we've probably heard the phrase planning for transition since she was 7 or 8. But I'm realizing now as I look at the older kids that are part of my life in their 20s and 30s, this is something that we really should be doing for every child, not just special needs kids. And of course, Megan is far from being special needs these days in a lot of ways, even though she does have some things that she struggles with. But in all honesty, I think we've missed the mark when we don't try to do this anymore. I know I went through some career counseling when I was in high school, but it had a lot more to do with what my parents' hopes and dreams were for me, and the same for my brother, more than it had to do with finding the path to give us the greatest joy in life. And I'm really thinking that we as a nation probably need to switch that up and change our thinking a little bit on that. And that's really up to parents. So it's something that you individually can do for your family and your children. So I've got a feeling I'm going to be doing some more writing on this as we go through this in our world. So we've had a peaceful week here. Laura's been doing a lot of driving, so she's not been around a whole lot. And I've been doing a lot of planning. So it's kind of been a quiet week. Next week is Thanksgiving week. And so my posts, I'm going to post every day, just like I always do. In fact, a couple of things I may be posting a little bit more than every day. And I've got some great recipes that are going up on the site that are Thanksgiving based. But it's kind of a weird Thanksgiving for us because traditionally, year after year, we don't celebrate Thanksgiving in November as a family. When Megan was very little and her father and I split, one of the decisions that we made was that we were going to have to play Bounce the Holiday. He had a new family. He was getting married right as we were getting divorced, as soon as we were getting divorced, to a woman who had young children. And so they were wanting to start family traditions for their new hybrid family. And I wanted to make sure we had good family traditions in our household too. But I didn't love the idea of pulling a child back and forth every Thanksgiving, every Christmas, every whatever. So we made the decision, or I made the decision in all honesty, because it was before there was a we. I made the decision that I was going to step back. I come from a family with a huge history of being from the old country. I was the fourth generation on my mother's side to have come from Germany and the Netherlands. And in fact, in my childhood, some of the older family members still spoke German, and I can remember going to church where German services were taught. A lot of the service was still in German in my childhood. So it was a big part of that heritage was a big part of my family tradition. It was not something my mother ever embraced, but as I got older, I made a conscious effort to embrace it in my household. And so, as part of that, we had always celebrated winter solstice in addition to Christmas, and we had always celebrated the fall equinox, which was traditionally a time of harvest, a harvest festival time, instead of November here in America. And if you've ever researched the history of Thanksgiving, Thanksgiving was not placed where it was because it was associated with harvest at that time. In fact, most harvesting is well over. It was placed where it was placed because of its accessibility to shopping for Christmas. So it was basically placed by Black Friday, not Thanksgiving. So with those things and realities in mind, and after talking with my father for quite a lot about this, what I decided to do, and it's actually the way it's written in my divorce decree, was we moved our Thanksgiving celebration to the fall equinox, which is in September. Almost half my family has birthdays in September, so it was already a time of celebration for our household. So it made sense. And then we moved our Christmas celebration from December 25th to December 21st, the winter solstice. And so the divorce decree specified that no matter how visitation was supposed to flux, Megan was mine on those days. And then on traditional Thanksgiving and traditional Christmas, she would go to her father. And so we got in the habit of celebrating that way. This year was a little different in that my family got hit with some illness and a move and some really hard financial times that all hit right there together, right as we should have been celebrating the fall equinox. So we didn't. It didn't happen. So there was talk in the household about whether we were going to celebrate traditional Thanksgiving this year. Megan doesn't go to her dad's for the holidays anymore. As she's gotten older, that's just something she opted out of doing. And his family is now old and grown and he has grandchildren, and they do their thing. But it really doesn't affect us like it used to. So we could move it back. But after talking about it, that just didn't seem to be what we wanted to do. So we're not going to. The time of year has put me in mind, and I am going to post some of the family recipes that we typically do in our September celebration. We're still going to do our Christmas on the 21st, as we do, and I think we're gathering with some friends on the 20th, so make that kind of a 2-day celebration, and go on. It's easy to get bogged in on the dates and times of these holidays, but you have to remember that the dates and times we celebrate have very little to do with what we're actually celebrating. And so if your family needs to be flexible, be flexible. So that's and I'm going to be doing some writing on our thoughts on Thanksgiving and how we do what we do. All right, so that's what's coming up. I have had a cat jump up here with me, so he evidently has decided that it's about time for Mom to be done with this. And I've got things in the kitchen calling me. I know this was more of an update on the website than anything else. Next week, things will get back to normal and there'll be some more content. You have a great day. Until next time, may your coffee or tea always be the right temperature and there always be laughter in your home. I enjoyed our time together. Bye from Heidi. See you next time.